Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to be going over lesson 3 of topic 11, adding fractions with like denominators. This is on your book, page 569. So the first thing we're going to do is go over the video.
How can you add fractions with like denominators?
Let's take a look at a couple of different ways.
How can
The
you
table
add
shows the
fractions
results
with like
of a 4th
denominators?
grade Pets Club
Let's
survey.
take a look at a couple
What
of different
fraction
ways.
of the club members chose
The
a
table shows
hamster
the
or a
results
dog
of a 4th
as their
grade
favorite
Pets
pet?
Club survey. What fraction of the
What
club
does
members
12
chose
represent?
a hamster or a dog as their favorite pet? What does 12 represent?
So if you notice, they said that they were doing a survey. So a survey is when you do a question, right? And you ask people around you that question to see what they answer. In this survey, they were asking 4th grade students to see what was their favorite pet. So they want to know, what does the 12 represent? If you notice, the 12 is at the bottom of the fraction. That means that it's our denominator. The denominator is going to tell us how many parts we have in all. In this case, they were asking students. So how many students did they ask in all? The number is 12. The denominator says that
The number
there was
12 represents the number of students in the club.
all.
What operation should
The
you
number
use
12
to solve?
represents the number of students in the club. What operation should you use to solve?
So since they want to know how many chose 2 different pets, because it said the word or, we're talking about addition. We're going to have to find how many chose those 2 specific pets.
Add the fractions
In
for
order
the
to
hamsters
find
and
that,
dogs
we
to
have
find
to
the result. Decompose
Add
the fractions.
for the
The
hamsters
diagram
and dogs
shows you
to
are
find
adding
the result.
2/12 and 4/12. These
Decompose
can
the
be broken
fractions.
into
The
2
diagram shows
1/12
you are adding
and
2
4
1/12
1/12
and 4
fractions.
12ths. These can be broken into
Since the denominator
2
is
1/12
alike in
and
all the
4
fractions,
1/12
you
fractions.
only add the numerators. So this
Since
is
the
another way to
denominator
write
is
this
alike
equation.
in all the fractions, you only add the numerators. So this is another way to write this equation.
Now notice here that when they're talking about 2 12s, they decomposed it into 1/12 plus 1/12, but it's still the same fraction, 2 12s. When they're referring to 4 12s, they are decomposing it in 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12,
Find
but
2
it's still the
12ths
same
plus
fraction.
4 12ths.
Okay?
Write the sum of the fractions.
Find 2
So
12ths
2
plus
12ths
4 12ths.
plus 4
Write the
12ths
sum of the
equals
fractions.
2 plus 4 over 12
So
equals
2
6
12ths
12ths.
plus 4 12ths equals
Use a
2
rule.
plus 4
Add
over
the
12
numerators.
equals
Write the
6
sum
12ths.
over the like denominators. 2
Use a
12ths
rule.
plus 4
Add the
12ths
numerators.
equals
Write
6
the sum
12ths.
over the like denominators.
Write
2
the sum
12ths
in
plus
simplest
4
form.
12ths equals 6 12ths.
6 divided by 6 over
Write the
12
sum
divided
in
by
simplest
6
form.
equals 1/2.
6 divided by 6 over 12 divided by 6 equals 1/2.
When they're talking about simplest form, they are talking about smallest form. Is it written in the smallest form possible? Now, if you notice 6 12s, this one, you should remember that when you have the top, the numerator is half of the denominator, that simpler form will always be 1/2. And I would tell you guys, 6 es
1/2
la
of the
mitad
club
de
members
12.
chose a hamster
Como es
or
la
a dog
mitad,
as
we
their
write
favorite
1/2.
pet.
1/2
Now
half
you
of the
know
club
how to
members
add
chose
fractions
a
with
hamster
like
or a dog
denominators.
as their favorite pet. Now you know how to add fractions with like denominators.
So now we're going to go ahead and go into your books. And go ahead and turn with me to page 571. I am going to start with the top information. It's going to give us 3 different properties of adding fractions. So there's 3 different ways that we can add fractions. The first one, it's called the commutative property of addition. When we have the commutative property of addition, I want you to focus on the equal symbol. We have a left side and we have a right side. If you notice, on the left, they're adding 3/5 plus 1/5. On the right, they're adding 1/5 plus 3/5. They're adding the same fractions, but the only thing that they did is that they swapped them. Here they started with the 3/5, which is over here at the end. And then at the end, they put the 1/5, which is now at the beginning. If you do that, you're going to get the same answer. 3 plus 1 is 4. Denominator stays the same. If we do the right-hand side, 1 plus 3 is 4. 5. Denominator stays the same. If you notice, it's exactly the same answer because all they did was to switch the fractions, the order of the fractions. Associative property of addition. For this, if you notice, there's an equal sign. Associative property means that you have a lot of fractions and you want to do 2 of them at a time or 3 of them at a time. So that's what they're doing here. If you notice, they're putting these 2 together for 8 plus 1/8. Then you get your sum and then you add the 2/8. On the right-hand side, instead of putting 4/8 and 1/8 together, they put 1/8 and 2/8 together. But you still have the 4/8. If you look at the answer is going to be exactly the same answer. When we put parentheses, that means that we're always going to do that part first. For example, here on this side, if I was adding those fractions, I would start by first adding the parentheses. So 4 plus 1 is 5. Denominator stays the same. Now I can add the other part, which was 2/8. But notice that I did the parentheses first. On the opposite side, for example, here, since the parentheses are here, I would do those 2 fractions first. 2 plus 1 is 3. Denominator stays the same, but you still have to add the other part, the 4/8. The last property, it's called the identity property of addition. The identity property of addition says, for example, if you have 2/3 and you add nothing, the fraction will keep its identity. In other words, it's going to stay the same because you're not adding anything to it. Okay? So 2/3 plus 0 is going to be 2/3, just like 2/3. Because you're adding 0, you're not adding anything. It's like if I say 4 plus 0. 4 plus 0 still going to be 4 because you're not adding anything. It's a 0. So let's go ahead and practice with 1 through 6. Add the fractions. Simplify if possible. Remember, simplify means to make smaller. So I'll start with number 1. 2/4 plus 1/4. Remember, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 1 is going to be 3. So my sum is 3/4. Number 2, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 1 is 3. Remember, when the top and the bottom are the same, this makes a 1 whole. Number 3, denominator stays the same. 4 plus 2 is 6. Right away, I can see 6 is half of 12. Es la mitad. So it becomes 1/2. Simplify. Number 4, denominator stays the same. 4 plus 1 is 5. Right away, 5 es la mitad de 10. It's half, so it becomes 1/2. Number 5, denominator stays the same. 3 plus 1 is 4. Number 6, denominator stays the same. 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, number 7. In exercise 2, Greg's answer was 3/6 equals 1.5. What error did he make? So it says in exercise 2, his answer was, what did it say? Oh, okay, exercise 2. So they're referring back to this one. So in exercise 2, Greg's answer was 3/6 equals 1/2. What error did he make? So it was 1/3 plus 2/3. So when Greg did this problem, he got 3 out of 6. What error did he make? Well, this is what a lot of students do. When you guys are adding fractions, you add the denominator. So you say 3 plus 3, 6. 2 plus 1, 3. That is why he got 3/6. This is not correct because we do not add the denominator because you're not adding parts to the whole. We're talking about the same whole, but we're only adding the parts that are already there. If you add the denominator, your wholes are going to get bigger. And that's not what we're doing. We're only adding the parts. So that was the error, right? The error is that he added the denominators. And we do not do that. Number 8. Using the survey on the previous page, what fraction of the club members chose either bird or cat from the previous page? Bird or cat? So the bird was 1/12. Or, that means another word for and, cat was 5/12. That clue word or tells me that I'm going to be adding because I want to know both. I want to know either the bird or the cat. Remember that the denominator stays the same. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 es la mitad de 12, so it becomes 1/2. Number in independent practice. In 9 through 23, add the fractions. Simplify if possible. You may use models and properties of operations to help. So I'm going to start with number 9. Denominator stays the same. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Number 10, denominator stays the same. 3 plus 2 is 5. Remember, when the top and the bottom are the same, that equals 1 whole. Number 11, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 1 is 3. Number 12, denominator stays the same. 5 plus 3, 8. When the top and the bottom are the same, it becomes 1 whole. Number 13, denominator stays the same. 5 plus 3, 8. 14, denominator stays the same. 5 plus 4, 9. 15, denominator stays the same. 3 plus 2, 5. Remember, 5 es la mitad de 10, so that makes 1/2. Denominator stays the same. 1 plus 3, 4. Number 17, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 4 is going to be 6. Number 18, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 1, 3. Remember, 3 es la mitad de 6, so se convierte en la mitad, half. Number 19, denominator stays the same. 2 plus 6 is 8. Number 20, denominator stays the same. I can put these two together and add them first. 3 plus 2 is going to be 5. Now I add 4. 5 plus 4 is 9. Number 21, denominator stays the same. Let's put these two together. 4 plus 3 is 7. Plus 2 is 9. Now notice that we have an improper fraction because my big brother is on top of my little brother. So we can make it into a mixed number. 5, how many times can he go into 9? 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 would be 10. So 2 is too big, so it can only go in once. So now I'm going to subtract. 9 take away 5 is 4. Denominator stays the same. Number 22, denominator stays the same. 40 plus 30. This one's easy because they have zeros. So I'm going to say 4 plus 3 is 7. And then the 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. Denominator stays the same. 9 plus 3 is going to be 12. Notice that it is an improper fraction because my big brother is on top of my little brother. So I'm going to ask myself, how many times can the 6 go into 12? 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. So the 6 can go in 2 times. Are we going to have anything left over? Actually, no, because 6 times 2 is 12. So that means that my answer would be 2 wholes. We go now to the back. Problem solving in 24 through 26. Use the table at the right. So we're going to be using this one for 24 through 26. Number 24 says reason. What fraction of the set is either triangles or rectangles? Remember, or means both, either or. So that means addition. Denominator is going to stay the same. 4 plus 2 is 6. Number 25. Which two shapes make up 7/10 of the shapes in the set? So I'm looking for two shapes. 1, 2, that when we add them, make up, o sea, the sum will be 7/10. So let's look at our fractions on the table. What two numbers can give me 7? 2 and 4, that would be 6. Nope. 4 and 1 is 5. Nope. How about 4 and 3? Yes, 4 plus 3 is 7. So what two shapes is that? Who is the 410? 410 is going to be the rectangle. And 3/10 would be the circle. Number 26. What two shapes make half of the set? What two shapes, 1, 2, make half of the set? When we come over to our table, if you notice, the total is 10. So in all, there is 10 shapes. What is half of 10? Half of 10 would be 5. So I'm looking for two shapes that would give me 1/2. In other words, 5. What two numbers would give me 5? 4 plus 1. So I could say 410 plus 110. The 410 is a rectangle. And the 110 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 sides, so it'll be the hexagon. But the question says find two possible answers. That is 1. What other two numbers, two fractions, would give me half? In other words, 5. What other two numbers can I add that would give me 5? I already added 4 and 1, so the other one would be 2 plus 3. So 2/10 plus 3/10, and these are going to be, the 2/10 are the triangles, and 3/10 would be the circles. Question number 27. Maria bought a pair of pants for $18.75 and a shirt for $7.99. She gave the cashier a $20 bill and a $10 bill. How much change did Maria get back? So I'm going to go ahead and do my strip diagram right away. And I think I did that too big. So what is my total? How much money does she have in all? Does Maria have in all? It says that she gave the cashier $20 bill and a $10 bill. So the total is $20 bill and $10 bill. So what is that total? 20 plus 10 equals 30. So in total, she had $30. It says that she bought a pair of pants. That's 1. A shirt. That is 2. And we're looking for the change. So we have pants, we have shirt, and we're looking for the change. That means we're going to have 3 parts. The first part will be the pants, which will be $18.75. The shirt will be $7.99. And the final box is for the change. How much change does she have left? That's what we're looking for. So to do this, we're going to have to do 2 steps. Step number 1, how much money was it in the total that she spent? So I'm going to add $18.75. We have decimal, so we have to make sure we align those numbers. Plus $7.99. So I'm going to start with 9 plus 5. 9 plus 5 is going to be 14, sorry. 9 plus 1 is 10. Plus 7 is 17. 1 and 7 make 8. 8 and 8 is going to be 16. 1 plus 1 is 2. So she spent $26.74. But I'm not done. Remember that she had $30 and we're wanting to know how much money will she get back. So I'm going to go ahead and do it over here on the side. She gave the cashier $30, but I don't write $30. I write 30.00. Why am I adding 0.00? Because we have a decimal over here. So I'm going to plug the number in. So it's going to be 74 and then it is 26. I'm going to subtract. So 0 minus 4, we cannot. So I go to the neighbors, but they're all zeros. So I'm going to go all the way to the 3. The 3 is going to become a 2. And the 0 is going to become a 10. Then we're going to regroup again and he becomes a 9. And the 0 becomes a 10. I regroup once more. He becomes a 9. And this one becomes a 10. Now I can subtract. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 7 is 2. Bring down my decimal. 9 minus 6 is 3. And 2 minus 2 is 0. So how much change will she get back? Maria's going to get back $3.26. That's her change. Number 28. Which sum is not equivalent to 3/4? Is not equivalent to 3/4. That means we're going to have 3 answers that will be yeses, but I'm looking for not. So I'm going to start with the first one. 4 plus 4, we don't say that. Remember, denominator stays the same. 1 plus 2 is 3. Is that 3/4? This is a yes. I was looking for no. Letter B. Denominator is 8. 1 plus 5 is 6. I'm going to go to C. Denominator stays the same. 3 plus 3, 6. Letter D. Denominator stays the same. 5 plus 3 is 8. Now, notice that none of them is 3/4. I eliminated the first one. The first one was a yes, but the other ones are all different. Now, this is what they did. 6, 8, they're simplifying it. They're making it smaller. So 6, 8, they're wanting for us to simplify it. So the fraction 6, 8. Let me get another sheet of paper. So this is my fraction. To simplify a fraction, boys and girls, we need to find the number that we can divide both numbers by so that we can make it a smaller fraction. So for example, the number 6. 6. When we have 6, what numbers can we multiply to give me 6? 1 times 6, 2 times 3, 3 times 2, but it's the same thing, right? I could still put it 3 times 2, but if you notice, it's the same thing. 4 times nothing, 5 times nothing, 6 times 1, but it's already here. 7, no. 8, no. 9, no. So these are the only numbers that can give me 6. So now I'm going to go to 8. What numbers can I multiply that give me 8? 1 times 8, 2 times 4, 3 times nothing, 4 times 2, it's already there. 5 times nothing, 6 times nothing, 7 times nothing, 8 times 1, but it's already here. So now I'm going to ask myself, what number do they both have in common that is not 1? Because remember, when we divide by 1, we're gonna get the same answer. Okay? So what other number do they have in common? If you notice, this one has a 2 and this one has a 2. Since they both have the 2 in common, I am going to divide by 2 to make it smaller. So I'm going to ask myself, 6 divided by 2. Or we can say 2 times what gives me 6? We know that is 3. 8 divided by 2. Or 2 times 1 gives me 8. That is going to be 4. Notice that my answer is 3/4. So if I go back, this one is 3/4. And this was the same fraction, 6/8. So it's going to be 3/4. If you notice, I wanted not. So this was a yes and this was a yes. And I was looking for not. So my answer will be D. But I want to go ahead and simplify 8/12 because since we're practicing that one, 8/12. So remember, to simplify, we need to divide. We need to make it smaller. So I'm going to start with the number at the top, who is an 8. And we have 1 times 8, 2 times 4. That's it, right? Now 12. What numbers can I multiply will give me 12? So we start with 1. 1 times 12. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. 5, no. 6, yes, but it's already there. 7, no. 8, no. 9, no. 10, no. 11, no. 12, yes, but it's already here. Remember, I told you we do not use 1 because if we divide by 1, it's going to be the same answer. So what number do they both have in common? They both have in common a 2, but they also have in common a 4. So when we are dividing, you always want to choose the big number to simplify. Because if we divide by 2, then you're going to have to divide again because you can make it even smaller. So I'm not going to choose the 2. I'm going to go with the big one, which is going to be the 4 because they both have a 4. So I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. So 8 divided by 4, or let's do the inverse. 4 times what gives me 8? 4 times 2. 12 divided by 4, or the opposite. 4 times what gives me 12? That would be 3. So my new fraction, my simplified fraction, would be 2/3. Remember, I was looking for which one was not 3/4. So my answer is D. Number 29. There are 64 crayons in one box. A school bought 25 boxes of crayons for the art program. How many crayons did the school buy? In other words, what is my total? Total number of crayons. So there's 64 in one, but we need to do 25 of those so we can get our total. So 64 times 25. You can go ahead and do the window. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and do the turtle. 5 times 4 is 20. So I regroup. 5 times 6 is 30. Plus 2 is 32. So remember that Mama turtle lays an egg. So she becomes a mom. So she gets a necklace, and then the baby starts giving her trouble, a headache. So we erase that headache. So now we're going to multiply the tens place. 2 times 4 is 8. 6 times 2 is 12. Add them together. 0 plus 0, 0. 8 plus 2 is 10. 3 plus 2 is 5, and 1 is 6. 1 plus nothing is 1. So my product will be 1,600 crayons. So in all the boxes, they will have 1,600 crayons in all. Okay, 30. Ken thinks that the sum of 310 and 410, he said sum, so that means add, is 720. Explain how you would help Ken understand why his answer is incorrect. And remember, I told you this is a mistake that a lot of students make. They add the denominator. 10 plus 10 equals 20. 3 plus 4 equals 7. But remember, we do not add the denominator. Ken, when we're adding fractions, denominator stays the same because we're not doing anything to the whole. We only want to know the sum of the parts. 3 plus 4 is 7. So my answer would be 7/10. So Ken, we do not add the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that you practice with 11-3 homework, which is page 573. And then you also complete the back. Now, when you guys are doing the back, 573, notice that there's a parentheses. Guys, do not get scared because there's a parentheses. That only means that you do that part first. For example, here, I'm going to add this part first. So 9, the denominator stays the same. 2 plus 6 is going to be 8. Now, I have to add 8 9s plus 1 9. Denominator stays the same. 8 plus 1 is 9. When the number at the top and the number at the bottom are the same, that makes 1 whole. So the parentheses only means that you do that part first. When you guys are adding, any of you guys have a fraction that you can make smaller, I want you to try this to simplify in another sheet of paper. Notice that I said try. Try to practice a simplify because this is something that you're going to be learning in 5th grade. So you want to start practicing so next year it'll be easier for you to simplify. So what do I mean? When you're simplifying, if the number can be made smaller, the fraction can be made smaller, then make sure that you try to. When we're doing the back, notice that for this one right here, I already know that this is going to be a division problem because they have the total and the parts are all question marks. So that means they're all the same. When we share equally, that means division. Now, if you know how to do the long division, do the long division. If not, make sure you do your box. For number 24, it's just like the problem that I did right now. So you're going to have to multiply. Now, if you're multiplying and when I was doing the turtle head, you were lost. Remember that this same problem we could have done in a box. 64 times 25. We could have done the window. 64, we decompose it with 60 plus 4. And 25, 20 plus 5. So I could have done my window. So do not be lazy and make sure you're practicing whatever way you know. 60 plus 4, 20 plus 5. So make sure you're trying your best, do your work. If you have any questions on the work, please let